like, because I read your blog, and you should read Bob's blog, because, as I said before he came on, there's nobody who analyzes and knows more about Paul Krugman than Bob Murphy. I mean, including Krugman himself. I mean, if Krugman were thinking, gosh, I know I wrote about some obscure point about Japan at some point in my career, he would email Bob. If he weren't already scared of Bob, he would email Bob, because Bob is the great knowledge bank of Krugman's work. So the website is Consulting by RPM. RPM are Bob's initials. So consultingbyrpm.com, and you'll want to click on the blog. Well, anyway, I mean, it's like every other day sometimes you've got some incredible analysis of Krugman, but it's not always just showing that he's wrong. It's also showing that the way he frames the debate, he can't possibly lose. And the other side always loses. He always wins. No matter what the data shows, he concludes that, see, austerity doesn't work. Can you elaborate on this? Give us some examples of this.
Well, sure. I mean, so the one that pops to mind recently is he's been running victory laps saying, you see, they're doing this unprecedented austerity in Europe, which is crazy. I mean, in many of the countries in Europe, they're spending more now, even as a percentage of GDP, than they were in 2007. Okay, and a few of them it might be lower, but most of them I think are spending still more than pre-crisis. So at best, you could say they started pulling back the stimulus. But in any event, he's been framing it and saying what we have in Europe is unmitigated, awful austerity to try to fix their deficit and whatever. And he said, and the fear mongers have been telling us that they need this in order to reassure the bond markets. And so Krugman's been making fun of what he calls the confidence fairy, his pejorative term to say that these people believe in fairies, and that's their theory, that there's a Hail Mary pass, that they want to impose a bunch of pain to reassure the bond market so interest rates fall on the debt issued by these governments that are in trouble now. And so that was the theory. So he points to the high unemployment, and he just makes fun of them for years on end, saying, see, this has been an experiment just to show you their austerity measures don't work. But then he's also been saying that the ECB needs to pledge to be a backstop for these governments issuing debt and so forth, and that would be a good thing. And then he pointed to what he called the Italian miracle and showed how their yields were falling, okay, and so on their debt. So it's like no matter what happens, if the yields don't come down, if there was no response, then it proves the austerity doesn't work. And then if the exact thing happens that the politicians over there who are saying we need to do this to reassure the bond markets and to bring down yields, if that happens, Krugman says, see, I told you I was right about the ECB. All right, so the point is, no matter what happens, he can always just say, see, I told you, because there's 19 different moving variables. So if anything good happens, he can say that's because of the half-hearted thing that they did that I was recommending all along. And if something awful happens, he can say, see, it's because they didn't do what I recommended. I mean, it's the same thing he did with the U.S. stimulus in, when was it? The summer of 2009, Krugman came out with a New York Times column saying, big government saved us. And he went through and explained why. I said, okay, finally the recession is officially over, and why is it? And he said, well, the answer is big government. And I'm not putting words in his mouth. That's literally the way he's described it. And he went through saying how the automatic countermeasures that went in, the food stamps and things like that, and then also the Obama stimulus package and the activities of the Federal Reserve, that's what saved us. And so he's thanking big government for averting the next Great Depression, but now later years into it, he's explaining why is it the economy's so bad, and of course it's because, well, they didn't do an adequate response. So again, it's like no matter what happens, he's still right.
Yeah. Well, it's good that you're keeping tabs on him. When we come back, I want to take a break. When we come back, talk a little bit about where the Krugman debate campaign stands. The demand for it is growing. You got six-figure pledges now. Can he continue to pretend this isn't going on? A lot more to talk about with Bob